Hello, this is a guy who likes fanfiction and is too lazy to read, so here is it was supposed to be simple in audio form. Check the description for the links to the author. Chapter 31, A Very Good Morning. Byleth took a slow, careful breath, trying to avoid being too loud. She didn't want to wake up Dorothea, in part because the already beautiful songstress looked absolutely lovely while she was asleep. Is that weird to think? The Archbishop murmured under her breath, before shaking off the thought. A part of her felt like she should have some kind of moment of trying to understand how this happened, of trying to recollect the exact circumstances of how she wound up in this situation, but truthfully she remembered every moment of her date with Dorothea that had led up to a night of passion fueled by years of longing and a newly awakened desire for physical pleasure. Some wine had been involved too, but honestly Byleth had already been excited enough to go right for it either way. And once her lips met Dorothea's, well, she just found herself wanting more. Glancing over at Dorothea, Byleth wondered if it would be okay if she looked under the blanket covering them, before shaking her head. She should wait for Dorothea to wake up first, right? Right. Though now she was wondering if she should try to get out of bed and get dressed. Oh no, she was waking up. Stiffening, Byleth elected to stare at the ceiling while Dorothea began to rouse. MMMH, morning, Dorothea greeted, moving to cuddle up against her. Have to say, I think you might be the most eager person I've ever taken to bed. Byleth kept her eyes on the ceiling, which meant she didn't see Dorothea moving closer to give her a peck on the cheek. It felt nice though, so she didn't mind the surprise. Morning. Heh, I also have to say, I had heard you were quite built, but I didn't expect how firm you'd be, Dorothea teased as she felt up Byleth's abdomen, enjoying just how solid she felt. Thank you. Dorothea laughed a bit as Byleth began to actively look away from her, her face burning red. Aw, come on. Moving, Dorothea got over Byleth as she placed her hands on either side of the Archbishop's head. You're gonna start making me think you regretted this. And no. I don't. Byleth responded, her eyes beginning to drift downward before they snapped back up. I just feeling a lot more than I expected. Oh. Why yeah, just a lot of years of pent-up feelings. Well, no need to leave them pent up for longer, Dorothea said, leaning forward to kiss Byleth. And, well, Byleth couldn't say Dorothea was wrong about her being eager. Sometime later, after Byleth and Dorothea had started their morning off, the Archbishop was still in bed. This was in part because she was just feeling very, very pleasant at the moment, though another part was that she just wanted to admire Dorothea as the latter dressed herself for the day. Hey, Dorothea. What, do you want another round? Byleth felt her face redden and genuinely considered saying yes, before she took a breath to calm back down, even if the idea still appealed. I wanted to ask, about us. Or, what do you want going forward? Is this a one-time thing, or are we, together? Dorothea hummed while deliberately bending at the waist to pick up her dress. She might have added a little wiggle too, just to keep Byleth's eyes on her, and judging from the cute noise the Archbishop just made, she succeeded. Do you want it to be a one-time thing? And no, I definitely want to do this again. I have complicated feelings about a lot of people, really, but I still have some. No, I have a lot of feelings for Edelgard. That does explain a lot. Or at least I would say that, if you weren't extremely obvious when it comes to your crush on Edie, she teased, smiling back at Byleth. Funnily enough, she didn't feel all that jealous. It was Edie, of course Byleth would have a crush on Edie. Who wouldn't? That just made sense. Still, I want to be honest about this. Especially since Edelgard and I are going to be working closely going forward. I should also say that Edelgard and I might meet up some nights to have tea together. Oh. Why yeah, it's kind of a habit I developed from the time I saw. She found me outside drinking tea the other day, and we've been doing it again. Which feels nice. Having tea while looking up at the night sky is relaxing. That sounds romantic. It does. Oh no, am I cheating on you? Am I cheating on her? Who am I cheating on? Dorothea giggled. Biley, no. For one thing, We haven't decided if we're dating yet, right? And I'm not going to get jealous if you want to hang out with Edie. Just invite me along if you get a little frisky, okay? She could see the exact moment Byleth's face went from its usual shade to completely crimson. Oh okay, will do. PFF, Biley, that was a joke. Oh, right, yes, that makes more sense, definitely shouldn't, millimeter. Dorothea smiled at just how adorable the Archbishop was before moving back to getting dressed, letting Byleth watch all the while. So are you planning to spend today in bed? No, I probably shouldn't, wait, right, I have a meeting today. Oh, I need to get dressed, no, wait, bath first, do I need a bath? She paused, looked down at herself, then nodded. Definitely need a bath. PFT, well I can at least walk with you to the baths if you want, Dorothea offered while Byleth clambered out of bed to quickly get dressed. Which let her admire Byleth in return. If you are not busy, Byleth agreed while she put on a simple bathrobe. Smoothing her hair down a bit, she nodded to herself before heading out of the bedroom and almost immediately bumping into Edelgard, who appeared to be talking with her guard. Byleth, good morning, Edelgard started, before she noticed Dorothea in the room. I see. I was wondering where you were last night. Feeling as if she was about to be set on fire with how hot her face burned, Byleth quickly closed the door. I've decided I'm staying in bed all day. Oh alright, then I guess I'll see you later, Biley, Dorothea replied with a cheeky smile, heading right past Byleth and opening up the door. Hello Edie. I hope you don't mind if I run off, this is my dress from yesterday and I really should get changed properly. You can feel free to spend some time with Biley though, she was just telling me how she was planning to drop that robe of hers and climb back in bed, and I'm sure she'd love some company. Then she paused upon noticing the guard standing there. Not you, Randolph. I wasn't going to? He looked at Edelgard, who let out a sigh. Randolph, go check in with Ladislava. I have business to attend to. Oh, right away, Your Majesty. He quickly saluted and hurried off, prompting an amused noise from Dorothea. Guess I'll take off as well, see you Edie, Biley, Dorothea said as she walked off, leaving the Emperor with the Archbishop. Which only Edelgard heard because Byleth had chosen to hide behind her bed, peeking up and stiffening as her eyes met Edelgard's. You I was unaware that you were courting Dorothea. It kinda happened, last night. That does explain why you weren't in the gardens. Were you waiting for me? Oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Byleth immediately apologized, standing straight up in a sudden motion that had an interesting effect on her loosely tied robe. Up until she noticed and promptly pulled it closed again with a faintly embarrassed noise. Yes, well, I suppose I can't blame you. Dorothea does have a way of drawing people to her. It's to be expected, really. Who doesn't have a crush on Dorothea? Edelgard thought. Why yeah. Deciding she didn't want to just stand outside the Archbishop's room, Edelgard entered and sat down on the corner of the bed. You two were close in the time you saw. We understood each other, Byleth responded as she sat down on the bed too. I mentioned it before, how the two of us became so jaded because of everything. The only difference being was, everyone kept trying to rely on me. I had to keep supporting everyone even as I was breaking. Dorothea she supported me, even if I couldn't do the same for her. And were you ever physical with one another? What do you mean? Oh, you mean like this, For a second there I thought you were asking if I beat her up. Edelgard didn't dignify that with a response. Alright, and no. No, we weren't. The most that ever happened with Dorothea was her holding me at night. I'm not sure if I ever even hugged her back. Well, you've certainly done more than that with her now, Edelgard replied without an ounce of sympathy, much to Byleth's embarrassment. Why yeah. It feels nice seeing Dorothea happy again. I don't know if we're actually going to start dating now, but I want her to stay happy. So, I hope the Empire stays at peace with the Church. I never thought I'd have someone ask me to change my plans because of love, Edelgard muttered, faintly amused. Though before she could say anything else, she felt Byleth touch her hand. I want you to be happy too. Leading a nation is too much for one person, so if I can help in any way, I'll do my best. Even if it's just being an ear when you want to complain over tea. Byleth smiled. I'm sure I can say we're having an important meeting if you ever want a break for a day. That does sound nice, Edelgard admitted. Then she plainly gave the Archbishop a look over. I do hope you'll make yourself more presentable beforehand though. Right. Sorry, Byleth said, taking her hand back as she moved her hand back to keep her robe closed. Careful now, you might end up ruining your reputation as the Archbishop if you act this easily flustered all the time, Edelgard said, though she did frown as Byleth winced a bit. Maybe her tone was too sharp, a part of her did feel somewhat jealous, though that was no reason to take it out on such a weak target. Perhaps I should train you. Train me. Indeed. An increase in confidence would do you good. Oh, like that then. Edelgard gave her an unimpressed look. I realize you spent your night with Dorothea, but I would prefer you keep your mind on something other than sex. I can't help it. I am not even dressed yet. Humph. Regardless, you have shown before that you can display confidence. Your interaction with Count Varley was one such instance, as was your talk with me afterward when I attempted to salvage his case. That was different. He scared Bernadetta. Byleth's eyes narrowed. And you'd better not put him forward as a candidate for bishop again. If you want him gone, there are easier ways to do it. Edelgard raised an eyebrow, before smirking. You see? Confidence, yet again coming out when you're angered. Perhaps that is what's needed? A little provocation before an event might do you some good. Edelgard, I don't think things will go well if you try to get me angry every time I need to negotiate. It is merely an idea, and not one that says I need to be the one to anger you. At the very least, something to motivate you when you need it can be helpful, Edelgard stated, keeping her response even. A part of her did find it interesting to see Byleth angry though. Though since you are to be the Archbishop, I need to ensure you won't roll over once you head to the Kingdom and Alliance. I'm not. The only reason I'm having so much trouble here is because I know the Black Eagles. So you're blaming us, she commented, adding a deliberate provocation to her tone that prompted a surprised look from Byleth. What? No. Why would you even say that? Perhaps I am still holding my own anger at my plans being foiled, Edelgard stated. You did completely ruin everything by coming here. Byleth stiffened, then stood to face her with actual anger. I did this for your sake. Edelgard stood up as well, meeting her gaze and fighting down the urge to smirk as she kept her tone provocative and biting. Really? Because it seems you're doing it for yourself and Dorothea. That's not fair, I'm allowed to have feelings for her. I'm not saying you can't. I just want you to get your story straight. Fine, you want me to be honest? I love Dorothea, even if she isn't the one I've known, she's still been nothing but sweet to me, and I want to be with her. Byleth stated as she stepped closer to Edelgard. And even if you hate me, and aren't the Edelgard I knew, I still love you. Even if things aren't the same, I'll always love you. That's the truth. By the time she was done, Byleth could feel her panting, trying to catch her breath as she tried to calm her anger, all while she and Edelgard outright glared at one another. Though, to her surprise, she could see a smirk on Edelgard's face again. I doubt you know this, but you are remarkably attractive when you act fierce, she stated, and Byleth felt something in her just surge. She didn't know who made the first move, but next thing she knew, they were both kissing each other. A passion fueled by desperation and longing overtook the pair as they tumbled onto Byleth's bed. Clinging onto her tightly, Byleth pressed up against Edelgard, not wanting to let go. Though before they could get too far, Edelgard broke the kiss with an unexpected shriek when Byleth tried to open her clothes. Sorry. And no, it's okay, Edelgard responded, trying to calm herself, not expecting her own reaction. Something about it just, she couldn't. I simply, am not ready for something like that. Alright, so, blushing, Byleth became aware that her robe had fallen completely open. Closing it, she got up from the bed. We should probably head out. We should, Edelgard responded, getting up and trying to smooth out her clothes. Maybe some fresh air would help. Byleth. And whatever plans Edelgard was making to try and calm down immediately went out the window when they both saw Rhea standing outside Byleth's room. Are you dash? The former archbishop stared at the pair, her eyes slowing moving down then up again, taking in the fact that both had rumpled clothing and flustered expressions. I can exp dash. We need to talk. Cutting Byleth off, Rhea addressed both of them, though Edelgard felt a familiar reptilian glare directed her way in particular. Perhaps motivating Byleth with anger wasn't the best idea. I would first like to state that I do not approve, Rhea started. Rhea dash. I don't either, Gerald cut in two, making Byleth stiffen. Especially since both him and Rhea were clearly staring at Edelgard. Perhaps if you dash, before Edelgard could explain, she was also cut off. We don't need to do anything. You need to listen to us, Gerald stated, his tone firm as he glared at the Emperor. I don't like you. You made my daughter cry her heart out more than once, so if it was up to me, we'd leave the Empire and never come back. Byleth winced. Papa dash. And I had hoped after our discussion you would have been willing to stay away from Byleth, not counting any missions you would undertake together, Rhea added, also glaring straight at Edelgard, yet I see I wasn't clear enough. That's not dash. The only reason I haven't done anything to you is solely because I know my kid will have to deal with the backlash. Byleth couldn't help but wince again at Gerald's tone. However, we do understand that Byleth is an adult, by human standards at least, so she is allowed to make her own decisions, Rhea stated as her glare softened. If she wishes to be with you, then that is up to her. All that I ask is that you refrain from being intimate with her so soon. Gerald grunted, not having anything else to say. He already made his disapproval clear, but he wasn't about to try controlling his kid's life. For the record, Byleth slept with Dorothea, Edelgard said, embarrassing Byleth even more than she thought she could be. Oh, you're dating multiple people, Rhea noted, her cheeks turning pink for a moment. Well, I like her more than the Emperor, Gerald commented. Rhea cleared her throat, drawing attention back her way. Regardless of who we favor, Byleth is still free to court who she wishes. Even if I would prefer she only court the songstress. Gerald raised an eyebrow. Didn't expect you of all people would be okay with the kid dating multiple people. Taking on multiple lovers is not taboo in Nabatean culture. I didn't sleep with Edelgard. Byleth shouted, fighting through her embarrassment to finally speak up, she was in my room because we were talking. Oh, I see. Rhea had the decency to look a bit embarrassed. Well, it seems I misunderstood what was going on. Though I am glad to hear you two aren't courting. You deserve far better. We did have a moment of passion, however, Edelgard decided to say as she glared at Rhea. Byleth couldn't help but flinch as Rhea crushed the armrest of the chair she was in. I see you are attempting to provoke me. Edelgard narrowed her eyes. If I were trying to provoke you, I would. See, can we please stop talking about provoking each other? Byleth pleaded, we're trying to get along, right? So please don't fight about this. It was, well, I'm not going to say it was a mistake, but I don't think it should matter who I date. Politically speaking, the Emperor and the Archbishop marrying would represent a complete upheaval of the entire balance of power in Fodlan, Rhea noted, prompting another bright blush from Byleth. We weren't, I don't think, marry. So as long as we don't marry it won't matter then? Edelgard asked. Not to mention I already plan on retiring once I find a suitable successor. You do? Rhea frowned. I find that difficult to believe. Not everyone seeks to cling to power for all eternity. See, can we please talk about something else? Byleth requested, like, what we should do about the Agarthans. That's important. Right, you informed me they were in HRYM, so I had Hubert start investigating. Oh, well, I remember some of the landmarks, if that will help. That it will. HRYM is a large territory, so being able to narrow it down will help. Thank you for your help, Byleth. Oh, No need to thank. Byleth blinked as Edelgard grabbed her hand, before blushing as the Emperor kissed it. She had to admit, it did make her feel giddy. Up until she felt Rhea and Geralt glaring at them. For the record, I'm okay with you dating her, Sothis chimed in. She might have her problems, but I do remember how Edelgard treated you before at the academy. Oh, well thank you, see can you do something about this? Fine. Sothis sighed, before moving over and taking over Byleth. Cyros, Eisner, will the two of you stop acting like children? Rhea stiffened. Mother, please, you can't tell me you approve of her. Edelgard, who was in the process of widening her eyes in surprise at Byleth's sudden change in demeanor, felt her head whip to the side when she heard Rhea say mother. If Byleth has chosen her, she has made her decision. The two of you need to respect that, and stop attempting to sabotage her by occupying the Emperor's time when Byleth seeks to speak with her, Sothis stated, making Byleth realize that's why things had been so weird. That being said, if she does indeed harm Byleth, then I shall deal with her myself. With that, Sothis turned to face Edelgard. I also offer my sincerest apologies for what your family has been through. Cyros should not have chosen neutrality when she did, and she should have stopped the insurrection before it began. With that, she bowed to Edelgard. The Emperor stared, a lifetime of training in royal etiquette keeping her jaw from dropping outright, unable to formulate a proper response. How could she? The goddess was bowing to her. The noise Rhea made at the sight wasn't replaceable by any human throat. Geralt, meanwhile, sighed. I had an entire thing planned. You know, let the tension build up some more, make it obvious I don't like her. That's inane, Sothis replied. Hey, it was my first time trying to be passive-aggressive. Give me a break. It was strange seeing Byleth with such a derisive expression, her contempt for such a plan more than obvious. You and Rhea are ridiculous. Though I suppose I can understand where you're coming from. Edelgard, who was still trying to figure out how she was supposed to feel in this moment, felt herself straightening on instinct as the goddess turned her gaze towards her. The only reason I am being so tolerant to begin with is that I've seen you at your best, young Empress, and I know you have a kindness to you. Her eyes narrowed. I am also aware you are capable of cruelty. For Byleth's sake, I reserve my judgment and will take no action against you. Your choices are your own. Edelgard felt it prudent not to correct her about the Empress' mistake. Thank you, Your. Why do our kind insist on such titles at all times? I am the progenitor god, you can just address me by name. I feel as though if I did, Rhea would immediately try to kill me. Ha. Well, at least you are not lacking in humor. It wasn't a joke. The glare she felt from Rhea was proof enough of that. Regardless, do your best to help Byleth. That means all of you, Sothis ordered, before the divine glow faded away as Byleth gained control again, only to pout at Rhea and Geralt. Were you two really trying to stop me from talking with Edelgard? Well, child, you see. Yup, Geralt bluntly replied, interrupting Rhea, who shot him an annoyed glare. In hindsight, I should have been more blunt and just told her to stay away from you. Papa, no. I'm not apologizing. Rhea frowned, but still nodded in agreement with his words. I agree with your father, child. The Emperor would make a poor partner for you. Edelgard felt like she should point out that she was still there and actively hearing all of this, but it really wouldn't accomplish anything. Byleth, meanwhile, frowned back at Geralt and Rhea. I am a full-grown adult. I can make my own choices in who I choose to date, and if I want to date Edelgard, then the only person whose consent matters is hers. I understand as the Archbishop, I have to think of my position, but I still have my own thoughts and feelings. If you two can't respect that, then you might as well head back to the monastery by yourselves. Are you trying to ground us? I am the Archbishop, it's well within my rights. With that, Byleth stood up. My apologies, Edelgard, but with how things have become, it might be for the best that we delay today's meeting until tomorrow. I suppose that would be for the best, especially since, thanks to this delay, you have yet to have breakfast or properly prepare for the day. Perhaps we can have an early lunch together. That sounds lovely, thank you. Nodding towards one another, both respective leaders of their nations left the room. Silence fell over the two remaining behind before Rhea summed up her and Geralt's thoughts. "I need a drink." "Hey Shezi, mind if we talk?" Dorothea asked as she approached her on-guard friend. What's up?" Shay asked, as she looked away from Edelgard and Byleth, the two currently eating lunch together in the palace's dining room. "Well, I saw how you were staring at Edie and Biley, but I figured you didn't want to join." "Why would I?" Shay scoffed. "Look, Shezi, I know you and Biley have history, but maybe if you talk to one another it might help. Or maybe she can actually apologize first without forgetting who I am," Shay shot back. "Besides, why should I try to get along with someone who's taking my friends away again?" "Shezi, what are you talking about?" "I mean what I said. Here comes the great Archbishop, making friends with everyone, even Bernie of all people. Meanwhile, I'm the asshole cause I'm mad my friends died." "Shezi." Frowning, Dorothea glanced at Byleth. "You're not an asshole, there's just a lot going on. And I really think talking with her will help. It could be useful to get information out of her. You might be able to figure out how she's able to charm everyone so easily," Arvel advised. "Trust me Shay, she's a lot sweeter than you think. Who knows, you might even end up being best friends," Dorothea suggested with a large grin. "No promises," Shay muttered before marching up to Byleth. "Hey, Byleth." Hello, General Shay." "Did you need something Shay?" Edelgard asked, keeping her expression neutral even as she worried about what her general was going to do. "I just want to talk, air some stuff out." "That sounds like a good idea," Byleth responded, standing up. "Edelgard, I hope you don't mind me excusing myself." "Of course not. I'll see you later," Edelgard agreed, frowning even as she nodded her head. She made a mental note to have Hubert keep an eye on their meeting. "Thank you." Glancing at Shay, Byleth nodded as well, before turning to lead the way. "I never thought the Ashen Demon would let her guard down like this," Arvel muttered while they floated beside their partner, staring at their enemy's back. "Perhaps this might be the time to take your revenge." Shaking her head, Shay followed behind the Archbishop, preparing herself for that possibility. She just needed to decide if it was worth screwing everything up. Chapter 32, Clearing the Air. "So how private should this conversation be?" the Ashen Demon asked Shay, who felt her brow furrow at the question. "Why's it gotta be private?" "You and I can talk out here," she stated, gesturing around the courtyard they'd moved out to. "Okay, I just wanted to check." For some reason, that answer just made Shay all the more annoyed. "Why do you need to check? You know why I'm pissed off at you." "I know, and I'm sorry." The Ashen Demon paused as Shay held up a hand, her own brow furrowing at the irritated look on Shay's face. "Don't give me that. You already showed me that you don't remember me at all, so don't give me some fake apology horseshit." Her annoyance built to actual anger as she spoke and Shay felt an urge to just go for it, punch the demon in the face and show her just who the hell she was forgetting. Byleth seemed to flinch for a moment, before rallying herself. "You're right, I'm sorry I don't remember you, I don't understand how I can't remember you. I remember everything leading up to the mission, I remember fighting Berlin, I even remember soon after that Geralt saying the mission was over. The only inconsistencies is that you had short hair and were a guy. So am I just supposed to forgive you for having a bad memory? I wish I had a bad memory. There's a lot I really want to forget." She sighed, before looking directly at Shay. "Before I give you an explanation for why I think this inconsistency exists, I want to ask you something." "Yeah? What?" "Have you ever heard of the Fell Star?" Shay's face scrunched up in confusion. "What, you mean a shooting star? Or, I guess falling star if you want to call it a fell star. Or, wait, so it's a star that already fell." Arvel, meanwhile, seemed to twitch for a moment, as if recognizing the phrase. Shay would have asked them about it, but it would be awkward doing that in front of the Ashen Demon, who looked kind of relieved, now that Shay looked at her. "It's not important. It just confirmed something for me, so thank you." "Yeah, well, I don't have time for whatever." "That was a lie," she had a lot of free time today. Can we just get on with your explanation? Because I'm going to be pissed off if it's something stupid. The Ashen Demon's eye twitched, some frustration showing on her face again before she took a breath. She fixed Shay with a serious stare, making the mercenary straighten on instinct, before she offered her explanation. I don't just have visions of the future, I came from the future. In a different time, I went to Garreg Mach instead of you. I worked as a professor, taught the Black Eagles, and then a war broke out between the three nations. 5 years later, the war was over, but I was emotionally devastated from the people I lost along the way. To help me, the goddess allowed me to turn back time so I could try again. However, in that first timeline, I think there was a difference. I killed you on that mission, the one that ended Berling's mercenaries, but that wasn't the same you that you are now. I don't know if that's what caused you to survive this time because I don't have the same memories, but that's the best explanation I can come up with. I've heard you have strange powers, so maybe it's just that this version of you, the you right in front of me, had them while that version didn't. She shrugged, trying to show her uncertainty. I can't say for sure, but I think that's what happened. I hope that suffices for an explanation. And, I'm sorry for killing you. The, other you. Sorry. What the fuck are you talking about? Shay asked, genuinely baffled. Sorry? What part did I lose you at? The part with, what? Should I start from the beginning? The Ashen Demon asked, looking so completely earnest that Shay felt just all the more confused and alarmed. No? That's, hang on, you think, so your explanation for why you don't remember me is that you're from the future and I was a guy in, what, my past life? Yes, exactly. She paused. I don't think past life is exactly the right word for it, but that's how I've been thinking of it, so I guess it works. Holy shit, she's completely insane. Shay wasn't sure what to feel right now. She was kind of expecting a confrontation with her hated rival, not a conversation outlining that the Ashen Demon was genuinely crazy. Should I even be thinking of her as the Ashen Demon? She's nothing at all like she used to be, then again, I only met her the one time, so, have I been thinking of her wrong this whole time? Come to think of it, she did just wander away after that fight when the Blade Breaker said it was time to go. Maybe she was this weird from the start and Shay just had the misfortune to run into her when she was keeping it together? In fact, thinking back to their spar, hadn't she shown some of that almost emotionless focus? Well, maybe she did. Shay couldn't quite recall considering how much of that fight had involved her getting beat down like a training dummy, but it made sense. Actually, if you don't mind me asking, I heard that you fought both Kronia and Thales. Shay blinked, drawn out of her thoughts by Byleth's voice. You know, the super pale people. One was the regent, the other held Monica captive. Oh, right, well I didn't really fight the regent cause he ran away, but I did fight that girl. I kicked her ass pretty easily. She saw the Archbishop smile for a moment there. Don't really know what's up with them aside from Hubert calling them Slither something, and I guess that Kronia girl was pretty cute. And Byleth's smile instantly turned into a frown. You have bad taste in women. Shay honestly wasn't sure what to say to that. No, wait, there was something. Fuck you, I've got great taste. You like Kronia of all people. Hey, I just found her hot. She's a cute lady with big tits in a skimpy outfit. She was holding Monica as a prisoner. And she's still objectively hot. I hate you, but you're still hot. What? I mean, look, you had a skimpy outfit too. Tight shirt, really small shorts, weird tights. Byleth immediately pouted. My tights aren't weird. They kinda are. No, they're cute. Grabbing her robe, Byleth lifted them up to show off said tights. Now that she was getting a good look at them, Shay couldn't help but note that the Ashen Demon had great legs. Look, I'm allowed to find whoever I find hot. Like Rhea. Byleth grimaced, dropping her skirt. Ew, gross. That's my aunt. Yeah, well, she's hot. Maybe I like older women. Byleth's eyes narrowed. Don't you dare try to seduce my aunt. I could. Don't. Shay met her glare with one of her own, before huffing. Okay, fine. If you're the bearer of great taste, who do you find hot? Edelgard and Dorothea. That's not fair, both of them are my friends. I can't say anything bad about them. Especially since one is my boss. So I win then. You don't win. Besides, that's cheating anyway, they have completely different body types. That's not what I like about them. I like dominant women. What? Byleth paused, considering if she should be embarrassed about what she said, before doubling down. I said what I said. I like confident women who take the lead. Physical appearance is secondary. You're only saying that because both of the ladies you like are gorgeous. They are, but that's not the point. Personality is. You're the one who's into physical appearances. All I said was that a lady in a skimpy outfit was cute. You're the one making a big deal out of it. That's because Kronia killed Geralt last time. Oh. Shay slowly nodded. So because she killed your dad in your past timeline, you don't like her in this timeline. Why are you saying it like that? Just checking. You think I'm crazy, don't you? I just think it's kinda dumb to hate someone for a murder they haven't actually committed. Shay paused. Your thing is different from my thing. You actually did kill Berlin. And Kronia killed my dad. But he's alive right now though. She still killed him. But that was a different, why am I even defending this random lady to you? I don't know, why are you? Didn't she try to kill you and your friends? Yes. So, what is this argument even about at this point? Your terrible taste in women. No. Not that part. And I have great taste. Like Manuela. I think she's hot. Okay, fair enough, she is hot. See. Fantastic taste. Shay grinned, then paused. Wait, hold on. What did I want from you again? I don't, wasn't I the one that, no, wait, you asked me to come out here. So. What are we even doing here at this point? Suthies and Arvel had no ability to see one another. Indeed, they were completely unaware of the other's presence. However, that did not change the fact that, for the briefest moment, the pair felt a strange sense of unity as they thought about how genuinely stupid their hosts were. I don't know. But, look, even if we don't like each other, we both want to keep the Black Eagles safe, right? Byleth asked. Well duh, they're my friends. Good, they're my friends as well. So we're going to need to work together when we fight the Agarthans. Especially since you're probably the strongest eagle at the moment. Shay blinked, feeling a little proud but also conflicted about it because of where the compliment was coming from. I am. Yeah. Well, I don't know how strong Edelgard is, but while I don't think she's ignored her training, the fact that she also has her duties as the Emperor, and isn't being given monthly do-or-die missions like she would have at the monastery, which means she's probably not as strong as she would have been last time. Honestly, the way she was moving makes me think she's about as strong as she was when we fought Miklon. Ah, that was in Verdant Rain Moon by the way. Wait, that was 6 months ago. Yeah. Honestly, a part of myself is feeling proud that I was able to help her get so strong, Byleth said, preening a little with a proud smile. Smug. I'm allowed to be smug when it comes to teaching the Eagles, Byleth countered. Oh, speaking of, did you remember my lessons? I don't know how you were healing so fast, but you really shouldn't rely on a healing factor to keep fighting. My crest heals me up too, but if I get stabbed in the heart or something, I'm not coming back from that, and I doubt you would either. Shay frowned. So I'm not gonna say you're wrong, because I'm pretty sure getting stabbed in the heart would take me down, but, are you actually planning on training me? Byleth visibly perked up. Do you want me to? Why do you look so excited? Because I haven't taught anyone in so long. Well no, I'm teaching people in the monastery, but not combat training. None of the students used a two-sword style back at the academy, so it'll be interesting seeing what works. Byleth paused as she thought to herself. A small shield might get in the way, maybe some arm guards? I can tell that you rely on your speed, so it can't be something heavy. Course we could always train you to get used to heavy armor so you'll be able to move more easily without it on. Ah, wait, what's going on? It might be a good idea to get the rest of the Eagles to join in for training too. Ah, if only Petra was around, she was pretty light on her feet, so she'd be a good sparring partner for you. Hey, who said I agreed to be trained? Shay interrupted, only for Byleth to hold up a finger. Shush, let your senior help you. Wah, who said you're my senior? Well, you're like what, 17, 18? I actually don't know. Byleth patted her on the head. We'll go with 18. Well, how old are you, huh? Physically 21. It's kind of messy because I was technically dead for 5 years, and then I was sorta not really cognizant for everything after the war, so I guess maybe 22, huh? Wait, did I celebrate my birthday? She frowned, then shrugged. It's fine, we can do that later. When's your birthday, actually? I can get you a gift. What's going on? Shay asked as Byleth put her hands on her shoulders and looked at her with a bright smile and a sparkle in her eyes. I'm welcoming you to the Black Eagles. I'm already a part of them. Yes, but shush now. You have much to learn. Shay started to think she wasn't ever going to like Byleth. So how do you think they're doing? Dorothea asked Edelgard, glancing in the direction Byleth and Shay left in. Presumably well, Edelgard replied, before taking a sip of her tea. That was a curt response, Edie. Are you mad at me? Edelgard paused, then lowered the teacup with a small frown. Why would you assume I am mad at you? Because your brow is all scrunched up like it gets when you're bothered by something. Usually paperwork, but I've seen it happen a few other times. Like when Caspi and Ferdy managed to break, what was it, about 3 dozen spears in their training. Learning how to pole vault is in no way training. Dorothea giggled at her friend's displeased tone, before smiling at her. So what's bothering you? Is it Shezi? Because I think she knows how to be civil with Bily. I am not certain how civil she can be, but Byleth can defend herself well enough. Ah, so it has to do with Bily, Dorothea noted. Your eye twitched when you said her name. Edelgard took a sip of tea to delay answering for a moment. I understand that Byleth is attempting to court you. Ah, don't tell me you're jealous. I am not, Edelgard immediately denied, making Dorothea smirk. However, when we talked in her room, things may have ended up going in a direction I did not expect. The two of us may have ended up in a compromising position. Ah, yeah, that sounds like Bily. She's quite eager to act on her feelings, Dorothea noted, sounding amused. Yes, well, it would be easy to act as if nothing happened, but then Rhea found us in said position. Oh, well, that does sound awkward. Yes. It does not help that thanks to your actions with Byleth, Rhea assumed I had slept with her. Which led to her and Gerald deciding they needed to let me know just how much they disapprove of me. Ouch, Dorothea muttered with a wince. Why do I get the feeling it doesn't end there? I may have, in a moment of spite, made it seem as if I was interested in pursuing Byleth romantically. Edie, I'm saying this as your best friend, don't spite date someone. Trust me, it doesn't end well. Dorothea sighed as she rubbed her head. Look, I'll cut to the chase, are you interested in her? Only as an ally, Edelgard stated, even if I were interested, dating the Archbishop is too compromising given what I intend to do for the Empire. Really, the fact that you are in a relationship with her is a boon, given that you're also my friend. This way there is a more personal bridge connecting us to help with talks in the future. Dorothea frowned. Well, if you don't want to date her, then you should at least have the decency to turn her down, or else you might end up leading her on. I am not going to lead her on. You might actually mean that, but you know how Bily is. Leaning forward, Dorothea sighed. She probably knows about some of our worst aspects, if not all of them, yet here she is, being so earnestly in love despite it all. Dorothea couldn't help but let out a bitter chuckle. Makes me wonder if I might just end up using her because of her position. From what I've seen of her, she would be happy to be used, Edelgard mused, or perhaps useful is a kinder word. Dorothea sighed. Always so cynical, Edie. You make me feel like an optimist when I'm around you. You've mentioned. Regardless, I have no intention of using Byleth's affections for me to my advantage. That earned a raised eyebrow from the songstress. Edie, while I would love to believe that, all I'm asking is that you don't make her think there will be a chance for more when there isn't. Even if I fully trusted that you could resist the temptation of having the Archbishop herself following your lead, the fact that you're the Emperor means taking advantage would be the right thing to do. You and her are two of the most powerful people in Fodlan, keeping her on your side is just common sense. Since when did you get so politically savvy? I do have brains in this pretty head of mine, remember? Humph. I don't doubt that, I'd expect advice like that from Hubert, not you. No, Hubie would be telling you to kill her because she's an obstacle and a threat. You know how he gets. Edelgard frowned. He doesn't always advise murder. But it's what he usually advises, right? Money, on the other hand, she might say the same thing as me, but I get the feeling she would get jealous at the idea of Bailey lavishing her affections on you. Monica can keep herself under control. I doubt she would let whatever interest she has in me compromise her judgment. Dorothea tried not to snort. Sure, Edie. Just, whatever happens, I'll be by your side, but she deserves honesty. I don't want this to be some messy love triangle that goes nowhere. So the way I see it, since you're doing away with all those traditions, you either turn her down, or pursue her. Wait, what do traditions have to do with this? You know, the fact that the Emperor tends to have multiple spouses. I figured that option is off the table cause you're against all those old traditions. I am unsure if that is a valid option to begin with, given that imperial polygamy was always intended as a means of producing crest-bearing imperial heirs. Edelgard deflected, her face warming slightly. A relationship between two women would. Why are you looking at me like that? Dorothea kept her eyebrow raised, deeply unimpressed. So your reasoning is that you should get married to a man to produce crest-bearing heirs? What? No, all I am saying is that, she sighed. You have a remarkable talent for making me feel like a hypocrite, Dorothea. Then don't try to use traditions as an excuse, especially when I'm asking if you even want to keep around those traditions to begin with. You could have just said, that's an obsolete tradition, I am going to get rid of it, not, whatever that was. Wait, we are talking about Byleth, where does polyamory come into play with this? Edelgard asked, only for her face to warm as Dorothea smirked at her. For a moment, she just stared at the beautiful songstress, before taking another sip of tea in lieu of responding. Judging by Dorothea's smile, her attempt at avoiding the conversation was seen as cute at best. You know, sometimes I really am jealous of you emperors. To think, you can have an entire harem of beautiful women adoring you all because of a silly law. She pretended to sigh. Oh well. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go check on the girl who is unconditionally enamored with me. If you feel like joining, feel free to come along, Dorothea said as she stood up, flashing Edelgard a smile as she walked away. Edelgard finished her tea first, then stood and followed Dorothea. She needed to make sure Byleth and Shay hadn't gotten into another fight, after all. The pair didn't expect to find the two training, with Byleth overseeing Shay as she struck a training dummy. You're actually pretty strong, but I'm guessing you never really had any training? Not that that's a bad thing, one battle can be worth 100 training sessions as it's said, but you're lacking in basics and fundamentals. Walking up, Byleth got Shay to stop swinging, before kicking the side of her foot. Hey, what the heck is that for? Your legs are too spread out, it means you're easy to knock over. Remember when we fought and I tripped you up? Or well, I assume I did that to this version of you as well, Byleth muttered, thinking about it before shaking it off. Either way, you definitely have speed, but in terms of strength or skill, you're kinda lacking. Now, while those powers you have might be able to make up for the strength aspect, it's only a temporary thing from what I've heard. So since you have that limitation, your best bet is to focus on making sure you're more skilled so you have all three aspects of strength, speed, and skill good to go. Which means making sure you have a proper stance, don't overreach your swings, and, of course, making sure to guard or parry an attack that you can't dodge. Excuse me, Edelgard decided to speak up. What exactly is going on? Oh, Edelgard, good timing, Byleth said, walking up and gesturing to the Emperor. This is a bit of a simplification, but both Edelgard and I tend to focus on strength and skill as opposed to speed. Though more so skill on my end and power on hers. So while I tend to act and react based on what is happening around me, Edelgard essentially causes the battlefield to bend around her with how strong she is. I mean, she was able to take on both Claude and Dimitri by herself during the Battle of Eagle and Lion in my time. Wait, so we would have won that? Damn, that would have been nice, Shay muttered, pouting. Probably. Depends on how good of a teacher Juritzaa was. And how the rest of the year would have gone. I mean, by that point in time several of the students from other classes joined the Eagles, so that helped, and I'm honestly not sure if Juritzaa could have gotten them to do so this time. At the very least Lysithea and Marianne probably wouldn't have wanted to learn under him, and honestly, he might have scared Bernie away into another class. Juritzaa isn't that bad, Edelgard spoke up in defense of her vassal. Okay, but is he a good professor? He is one of my personal combat instructors. How good of a professor was he? I mean, if I'm being honest, he didn't really do much outside of having us spar. I'm handy with a sword and all, but when it comes to magic I learned basically nothing from him, Dorothea admitted as she cut in. He also didn't really want to talk to us once classes had ended for the day. Byleth frowned. Well, at least the Death Knight hasn't caused any problems. Edelgard sighed. I really shouldn't be surprised you know about that. To be fair, I still have some big gaps in my own knowledge. I mean, I don't really know anything about Claude or Dimitri. Wait, quick question. That Cornelia lady in Faerghus, is she an Agarthan? And if she is her actual name something that starts with Cleo? I am aware that the Agarthans have their hooks in the kingdom as well, though I am uncertain of who the infiltrator there is, Edelgard admitted. However, if Cornelia is indeed the person who was left in charge in the time you saw, then she likely is one. Alright, sweet, I know who to beat up in the kingdom. I should check to see if Milclon is still kicking. The commander. Byleth slowly turned to Edelgard. What? Hubert has spies in the kingdom, and he was informed that Miquelon Gautier was recently risen from a mere bandit to a commander in the Faerghus military by King Dimitri. Oh no, the kingdom is evil. Chapter 33, Old Memories. So, what's the problem with this Miquelon guy? Shay asked a little while after moving off the training field for a break. Rest after training was important, though she was kind of surprised that a break for Byleth apparently meant setting out a blanket for a picnic on the grass. Oh, Miquelon was a noble of House Gautier who got disowned because he didn't have a crest. Which would have been a tragic circumstance if he didn't beat and almost kill his younger brother for having a crest, and then he turned to banditry to the point that he razed villages to the ground while capturing the women for the typical reasons bandits go after women, Byleth readily explained while pouring tea for herself, Shay, and Dorothea. Also for Edelgard, though the Emperor seemed nonplussed by the impromptu picnic and was still standing instead of sitting on the blanket. Oh. Yeah, damn, okay, sounds like the king is evil if he decided to promote a guy like that. Now that you say that though, I feel like I might be overreacting. Why is that your reaction to me agreeing with you? Well, it's more so actually hearing someone else saying it that makes me realize how it sounds, Byleth elaborated. Dimitri, well, he kind of went off the deep end during the war, but he's not evil. I think, now that I think about it, he took you declaring war against the church really personally for some reason. Were you too close, Edelgard? Aside from exchanging pleasantries with him as the house leaders, I didn't really talk with him. That incident with the bandits is probably the longest we spent in each other's company, Edelgard replied, still standing, which earned her a look from Dorothea before the songstress patted the empty space beside herself. The Emperor didn't quite sigh, but she did take a seat after a moment. Byleth, meanwhile, looked thoughtful. You two didn't get to spend much time together this time around, but, I'm trying to remember if you had any big interactions in my time. I think he tried to talk to you once or twice. I don't think he even asked you to dance with him during the ball. Granted, I left the ball early because I was getting tired of everyone wanting to dance with me. Though you also left the ball early as well. She did. Dorothea couldn't help but ask. Yup. Ah, we actually met up in the Goddess Tower by coincidence, funny enough. Oh. Now Dorothea sounded interested. Yeah, despite how tired I felt, I actually asked Edelgard to dance with me since we didn't get to at the ball. There wasn't much music, but there was just enough drifting up from the ball. Byleth smiled wistfully, recalling that lovely night. It was nice to remember one of the sweeter moments she'd had back then. Edelgard coughed into her hand, trying to cover her blush. Oh, sounds romantic. Didn't help that Dorothea decided to comment on it. Ah, not really, I still wasn't really good at dancing, so it was a bit of a mess, Byleth said, as she laughed. Ah, I know it wasn't with you here, but sorry again for stepping on your feet while I was helping you practice for the White Heron Cup. You did? Yeah, well, I say helping you practice, but it was the first time I ever danced before. But it was nice, you made sure to show me the proper steps, even if I wasn't that good a student, haha. Dorothea smiled. Well, maybe you'll be a better student this time around, Oh, that's a nice offer, but Yuri actually helped me learn how to dance this time around. Really, she could understand needing to dance if she was ever at a ball, but she wasn't sure if anyone would ask the Archbishop to dance. Ah. Well, we could still practice together? If you want. Or you could just invite her to dance, Shay pointed out. You're dating, right? So just go for it. Oh, that's true. Trailing off, Byleth stared at Shay, who had already eaten most of the snacks that had been prepared. What? Don't eat all the food. Hey, you guys are the ones not involving me in the conversation. It was either I eat or I leave, and I was hungry. Well, is there anyone you're interested in? Dorothea asked. No. Grabbing a macaroon, Shay munched on it. Well, she finds Kronia and Rhea hot, Byleth mentioned. What? Edelgard asked, completely bewildered by that information. Hey, just cause I find them hot doesn't mean I want to date them. Shay huffed. Also, we're not arguing over my tastes again, or else I'm taking the rest of these. You already ate most of them though, Byleth grumbled, pouting. So get one before they're gone. Or do you need me to feed you? I don't. I could help with that, Dorothea offered, amused. And her smile got wider as Byleth went adorably red. All right, I'm out, Shay muttered as she stood up, basket in hand. Have fun third-wheeling, Edelgard. Ah, hey, was all Byleth got out before Shay flashed away. I was looking forward to those. Where did you even get a picnic basket anyway? Edelgard asked, though no answer was forthcoming as a mopey Byleth was pat on the head by Dorothea. There. At least Shezi will enjoy the treats, right? And we can always get more. I wanted to share with you though. Then how about we ask a servant to get some more for us? And in the meantime, you can just lay down and rest, all right? Dorothea grinned then patted her lap. I have a comfy place for you to rest your head. Feeling her blush get heavier, Byleth moved over, and laid her head down on Dorothea's lap. Heh, you know you have really nice hair, Dorothea said, gently patting Byleth's head. Thank you. Edelgard tried not to sigh as she looked away. You know, I was considering something. As we are to be working together, perhaps it would be a good idea for the Empire to have a liaison to the church. Oh, that sounds like a good idea, Byleth responded, enjoying the relaxing feel of Dorothea's hand as she let out a small yawn. Quite, and I was thinking that, as such, it may be a good idea for Dorothea to act in that role. Oh. Dorothea glanced up at Edelgard, a bit amused. That sounds good to me. Byleth said, trailing off a bit as she started to grow comfortable and sleepy. Good, that is good to hear, Edelgard responded, before glancing at the two, a small sense of unease settling in at the feeling of intruding on their moment. Well, I should leave you two alone. As she got up, Edelgard felt a hand lightly grab hers. Glancing down, she saw Byleth reaching out towards her. Don't go. Byleth murmured, her eyes closing as she started to drift off to sleep. Love you. You shouldn't, Edelgard murmured, though she still sat back down. I really don't deserve this affection. The me that she loves, I'm not her. Does that matter? Dorothea asked, a small smile on her face as she continued to pet Byleth's hair. You're easy to fall in love with, Edie. Trust me on that. Even if you're not exactly like this other you, I'm sure she'll love you all the same. Edelgard wondered how her other self was able to do it. She had been prepared to commit so many atrocities, yet she was lucky enough to escape the thumb of the Agarthans. Yet, in another time, she wasn't so lucky. She had so many sins, and even so, there was still someone who cared so deeply for her. I don't think I've seen her look this peaceful before. Heh. It's a nice look, Dorothea murmured, it makes me want to see her look relaxed more often. I can agree with that, at least. I want to make a more peaceful, fairer Fodlan. And I wouldn't mind if she enjoyed that peace as well. Gonna enjoy it with her. If she wishes for my company, then I won't deny her. Though I won't be able to be as public about it as you. Heh, something tells me she won't mind secret rendezvous. Humph. Something tells me you would enjoy it even more. Maybe, but for now, let's just enjoy the day. Very well, she agreed. After all, she didn't know how long these peaceful days would last. She should enjoy them while she could. Off on the other side of the courtyard, a bush rustled, before the leaves parted as Bernadetta poked her head out to keep watching the trio. She had to admit, it was a surprise to see that Edelgard was involved, but it still worked regardless. Especially since it meant her head was getting fueled with scenarios for the story she was writing now. Well, hello there. Someone greeted, making Bernadetta immediately cover her mouth in order to avoid shrieking and alerting the others. Glancing up, she saw a familiarly smug face as Yuri smirked down at her. Didn't expect to see you here. What are you doing? Checking in on my boss, what about you? I am as well. I mean, my boss, not your boss, Bernadetta deflected as Yuri quirked an eyebrow. And who exactly is that? As far as I'm aware, you're just a noble, you're not actually employed by the Emperor. Why yeah, well, she lets me stay at her place, so, you know. I really don't. Bernadetta couldn't help but pout, before glancing up at him. Do I know you? You seem familiar. And I'm not talking about Byleth's ascension ceremony. Oh, I have one of those faces. Just to check though, you're just keeping an eye on your friends here, right? No nefarious plans in mind. What? No. I am just here to watch. And not in a weird way. I just want to make sure things turn out okay. I can understand that, he murmured, looking over at Byleth with a strangely familiar fondness. Really, something about this situation, hiding in the bushes along with a boy her age. Wait. Bernadetta gasped. That, why Yuri? And no, that can't be right. I'm tempted to keep the game going by saying, what can't be right, but that feels cruel at this point. Yuri smiled. Hello there, Lady Bernadetta. I'm glad to see you're doing well after all these years. But you're okay. Well, I am an attendant to the Archbishop. Bit of a step up from being a gardener, don't you think? That's not what I mean. Bernadetta nearly shouted. Grabbing his arm, Bernadetta pulled Yuri away from the gardens and inside the palace, trying to find a quiet spot. I thought you died. Your father certainly tried to make sure I did, but I managed to make it out alive. Guess I should consider myself lucky that only one of my legs was broken that day. But that's horrible. Why, you didn't deserve that. Well, I don't know about that dash. I do. Just because you were my friend doesn't mean those things should have happened to you. Well, that isn't exactly true. Yuri noted, getting Bernadetta to look at him in confusion. If I'm being honest, I wasn't just a gardening assistant. I was actually hired as an assassin. Against my dad. Yuri couldn't help but pause as she seemed inclined towards the idea. No, I was hired to kill you. What? My biggest mistake was becoming friends with you first, since I hesitated when the moment came. Right when it came down to it, I took too long, and that's when your father found me. Heh, I guess even he cares in his own way. And no he doesn't, Bernadetta muttered, a steel in her voice that caught Yuri off guard. He could have just had you arrested or something. But even then, he wasn't protecting me because I'm his daughter, he was just keeping me alive cause he wanted to marry me off to someone. I mean, here I am, friends with both the emperor and the archbishop, and he still yells at me. Do you know he didn't even realize I was sent to join the academy? He just thought I was being quiet for once. Nothing I do is good enough for him, and you of all people shouldn't defend him. I don't care if you were hired to kill me, you were the only friend I had. Yuri blinked. Well, I must admit, I didn't think you had such a strong backbone. That's because I'm Bernie Bear. And I'm brave and strong. Excuse me? Yuri asked, genuinely confused, which seemed to actually catch Bernadetta off guard as her face turned pink. I mean, why you know? I really don't. Well, you're going to, she affirmed, nodding sharply. In that case, I guess I'll have to stick close by to make sure I do know, Yuri said with a wink. Speaking of, if you want to be sneaky, there are better ways to do so than hiding in a bush. Especially since you can't hear anything they're saying. Unless you can also read lips. I wasn't doing that. Really? So you weren't getting ideas for, what was it you liked to do? Yuri smirked as Bernadetta paled. Oh right, you liked to write store dash. Bernadetta wailed as she ran away, screaming that she hated him. As she fled, Yuri couldn't help but laugh. Bernie Bear, huh? More like a Bernadetta. Yuri paused for a moment. I'm spending way too much time around Eloise. Sighing, Ferdinand tried to focus on his tea in an attempt to relax. It certainly was a trying time with everything that had occurred from the Archbishop visiting. What with the assassination attempt, the incident with Edelgard yesterday, and the fact that he still hadn't worked up the nerve to talk to his father, it all meant he was feeling quite stressed. Oh well, nothing some tea in the gardens couldn't help. Oh, Ferdinand, how are you? Greeted the Archbishop as she walked by Ferdinand, out on a stroll of her own through the gardens. Ah, quite well Lady Byleth. And may I say you look positively radiant today. Oh, thank you Ferdinand, Byleth said, smiling in response. I had the best sleep of my life last night. Ah, do you mind if I sit with you? Of course not. Tea is meant to be shared after all, Ferdinand said, pouring tea for her as she sat down. Thank you. Taking the cup, she took in the aroma. Ah, southern fruit blend. My, but you truly are a tea connoisseur, aren't you? I would not consider myself on the same level as you, but I am quite fond of tea, Byleth responded as she sipped the tea. I am glad to hear so. Perhaps next time I can bring something more exotic? I did just receive a shipment of Almiran pine needles if you would like. That sounds lovely. Wonderful. Ah, but first, I wanted to apologize. Though she may be emperor, the way Edelgard acted during that spar was not befitting of her position, Ferdinand declared as he bowed his head to Byleth. Setting the cup down, Byleth put on her best smile. There is no need to apologize, I simply let my emotions get out of hand. Even so, she should know better than to attack while you have your guard down. Ferdinand, it is okay, she assured, trying not to get annoyed, Edelgard and I already discussed the incident. Well, if you say so, he accepted, raising his head again. I do. Now, did you want to talk about the other thing you had in mind? Excuse me. Your father, the former Duke Agir, is being held here, is he not? That he is, but there is no need to worry about that, Lady Byleth. Once things have been settled he shall be charged for his crimes. Byleth sighed, before looking over at some flowers nearby. You still care deeply for him, don't you? Ah, he is my father, Lady Byleth. And you grew up idolizing him, only to one day realize he wasn't the man you thought him to be, right? Is that not how it is for everyone? Even for those whose fathers haven't committed crimes, you start seeing them in a new light when you grow older. That is true, I can certainly say the same, Byleth murmured, before turning to face Ferdinand, a memory of an incident involving him and Lysithea surfacing in her mind. You should go see him. Your father, he is guilty. Even if you can't find evidence, I am sure of it. Even so, you should make sure to talk with him, not for his sake, but for your own. Ferdinand let out a small sigh. Perhaps you are right, I must say, I can see why you are the Archbishop if you're this wise. I wouldn't call myself wise, I just want to make sure no one has any regrets. Even so, I'll take your advice to heart, Ferdinand said with a smile. Ah, but perhaps we should move on to brighter topics. You've met most of the Black Eagles, correct? Ah yes, though, I didn't really talk to Linhard when I saw him. Well, you have plenty of time to do so, he reassured, internally musing that it wasn't unusual to have little to no actual conversations with Linhard. What I wished to say, however, was that you'll be happy to know that the last member of our class will be arriving soon from Brigid. Wait, Petra is coming. Of course. She had business to attend to in Brigid, but we received a letter shortly before your arrival that she will be returning soon. And I'm sure she'll be delighted to meet you. Byleth smiled. I would be very happy to meet her as well. I am glad she and Emperor Edelgard are taking steps to mend the relationship between Adrestia and Brigid. Indeed. It is only natural to strive for peace, and I will, of course, be aiding the endeavor with all the grace of my noble station. The Archbishop giggled. I'm glad to hear that. Actually, while I have you here, what are your duties normally as the Prime Minister? Oh, well, you see, as the acting Prime Minister, my tasks entail guiding the other ministers in their own ministerial duties, Ferdinand answered, trying to avoid showing any awkwardness as he did so, organizing, collaborating, keeping everyone on task and guiding the Emperor as needed, of course. Truthfully though, Ferdinand's current position could loosely be called a placeholder. The title of Prime Minister was hereditary, passing from the head of the household to their heir when proper, but the circumstances surrounding Ferdinand's ascension was fraught, to say the least, given his father's arrest. Adding on to that, the other ministers were far older than he was, or happened to be Hubert, and that meant he didn't really have the respect his father had garnered, though perhaps influence was a better word. And while they were the bigger thing to focus on, the countless minor nobles who supported his father couldn't be ignored either. It'll be okay, Byleth said, cutting through his thoughts as she placed a hand on his. You're a good man, Ferdinand. The Empire will flourish with you here. Thank you for your kind words. Perhaps you can mention that to Edelgard if she ever decides the pressure of the throne is too much for her, Ferdinand said in a joking tone. She did mention that she seeks to step down once she finds an appropriate successor. I wouldn't be surprised if you end up at the top of that list, Ferdinand. Ferdinand blinked, genuinely caught off guard. Oh, I am surprised to hear that she said that. I did not know she intended to step down. It's how she is. She doesn't want power to belong to just one person. That is something I can agree with. You are already planning on stepping down. When the time comes. I want to make sure I do everything I can before then. I just hope Fodlan is able to stay at peace until then, and further on for that matter. And that is something I can certainly agree with, Ferdinand agreed, a smile on his face as he raised his cup of tea. Smiling in response, Byleth raised her cup as well, only to have to set it down as she began to cough. Ah, are you okay? Why yeah, I think this is just the consequences of sleeping outdoors, Byleth explained as she cleared her throat, before sipping some tea to ease her throat. If you want, I can have tea prepared for you that would be good for the throat. Oh, thank you, Byleth said as she set her cup down. Oh, and before I forget, you may need to apologize to Dorothea. Whatever for? The reason she dislikes you specifically, Byleth muttered, scratching her cheek as she felt a bit awkward. There was an incident in your past. Oh. He frowned. I don't know what you mean. As far as I remember, I have done nothing untoward since we met at the academy. It was an incident before you joined the academy. Specifically when you were a child. At Ferdinand's confused look, she continued. She was, the one you considered a water nymph. Ferdinand blinked. It took him a moment to piece together what the Archbishop was talking about, his mind drifting back to that day, many years ago, when he spotted a vision of beauty bathing in a fountain, who, now that he was thinking about it, did have brown hair and actually did look a great deal like a younger Oh. Oh goddess, that was Dorothea. Byleth confirmed, nodding. Oh, no wonder she's angry with me then, I must have seemed like an ill-mannered voyeur staring at her like that. Ah, no, that's not exactly. I need to apologize to her at once. Ferdinand shouted before he rushed off, nearly making the tea set go flying before Byleth caught it. Wait. Byleth called out as she ran after him. Briefly stopping time to grab onto him, she was somewhat surprised that he seemed to adjust to the weight easily enough, practically dragging Byleth as he continued running. Letting go of him since she didn't want to cause any rumors to spread from the sight, she did her best to keep up with the annoyingly fast nobleman. Curse his longer legs. Fortunately, or unfortunately, they managed to find her relatively quickly. I'm telling you, Lynn, you should hang out with us more. I didn't even realize you were here. Dorothea. There you are. Ferdinand shouted, getting the songstress to pause as she looked away from their lethargic friend. Ferdy? What are ? I want to apologize. I now understand why you dislike me so much. Ah, Ferdinand Byleth tried to interrupt. I understand nothing I can do will ever make up for my actions, Ferdinand continued on, not hearing Byleth. However, know that if there is any way I can make it up to you then I shall. To punctuate this, Ferdinand bowed deeply to her. Dorothea looked between him and Byleth in confusion. Biley, please tell me you didn't sleep with Ferdy. What? Of all the things Dorothea could have said, Byleth expected that the least in her face went completely scarlet at the suggestion. Ferdinand, meanwhile, went rigid, before bowing even deeper, his head nearly touching the ground. You truly do think of me as a depraved lecher, I am truly sorry, Dorothea. I can never make up for this sin of mine. Okay, from Biley's reaction, that's not what happened, but what in the world are you talking about, Ferdy? Dorothea asked, more bewildered than anything. Back when we were children. I was being a voyeur. The suggestion that Ferdinand peeped on her before actually made Dorothea furrow her brows, though she was still more confused than anything. What? I was but a naive child. I should have known better than to think the person I saw in the fountain was a nymph. Yet even so, in my blind naivete I was foolish enough to peep on someone bathing. To think I would embarrass you like this. No wonder you hated me so. Ferdy. Looking around, Dorothea couldn't help but blush, especially as there were people nearby, who seemed to be misunderstanding what was going on. A lover's quarrel? Seems like, think he cheated on her. Definitely. Looks like it might have been with the girl in the robes. Oh, but they seem like friends, how scandalous. Byleth really wished she could turn back time right now. I must say, this is quite fascinating, Linhard decided to speak up. But maybe you can take this act elsewhere. Preferably somewhere where I'm not trying to nap. I wonder how the other man's involved, murmured one of the onlookers, prompting a sigh from Linhard. And like that, I'm no longer talking. Ferdy, please get up. You're making a scene. Dorothea glanced over at Byleth, who looked about as embarrassed as she did. What did you even tell him? I thought I could help. Since it was a misunderstanding. What am I even misunderstanding? I don't know what either of you are talking about. You know, when you were bathing and you thought Ferdinand was glaring at you. It still took Dorothea a moment to realize what Byleth was referring to, though once she did, her face went completely red. It was actually kind of cute, a small part of Byleth's mind noted while Dorothea immediately tried to pick Ferdinand off the ground where he was full on kowtowing by this point. Ferdy, seriously, get up already. I'm not even sure if I should be angry right now, but you're not helping. Should I help pick him up? Byleth offered. You should, Linhard commented, and let me sleep. Don't you have a room? Dorothea asked as Byleth started to pick up Ferdinand. Well yes, but this place seemed so comfortable, especially with the scent of flowers drifting in. Ah. Wait. I understand now, why you called me a bee back at the academy. Ferdinand suddenly shouted at the mention of flowers, shooting up out of Byleth's grasp. My eyes must have stung you, much like that of a bee sting. Ferdy, that was a year ago. Why are you still hung up on that? Because I wanted to know why a friend of mine disliked me. Still. Byleth, in a moment of brilliance, tried to make a joke to help break the tension. Well, Ferdinand can be quite bee-like. I guess you can call him Ferdinand von Hiver. Byleth shifted in place, her face rapidly reddening as Ferdinand and Dorothea just stared at her. Sorry. Ferdinand von Hiver, Linhard murmured, before abruptly letting out a bark of laughter. Ha! I get it, that's funny. Thank you, Linhard. Well, at least they weren't yelling anymore. Chapter 34, A Delightful Meeting. You seem quite excited, Edelgard noted as she waited alongside Byleth on the docks, a small entourage gathered behind them. Of course. Petra is almost here, which means all the eagles are in one place, like they should be. Byleth responded with a smile. I suppose I can agree with that, Edelgard replied. She sided with you in your time, correct? Yeah, Byleth admitted, her smile dimming a bit. She felt the only way to save her people was for the Empire to be crushed. Though, it's something I think about often. About how many of the students would have sided with you if I hadn't been around. I would like to think that even if things had gone how they did, Petra would have been on your side like she is now. Perhaps. As it stands, she might only be my ally because I promised to free her people from being a vassal of the Empire. Though said promise had been made when I had planned to go to war against the Church with Brigid aiding me. You're going to keep that promise, right? Petra is our friend. That's not something you should hold over her. I understand. Though it is something I need to be careful with. The state of the Empire is rather fraught. If the nobles view me as weak for freeing Brigid with no reason, then they might get ideas in their head. Politics definitely make things difficult. That it does. Things were far simpler when I was a child and only ninth in line. Though that just meant I had to spend that much more time studying after everything happened. Edelgard sighed. I certainly am looking forward to eventually retiring if I get the chance. Preferably far away from all of this. I can understand that. I'm already hoping to have a cottage in the woods to take a break when I need to. That does sound lovely. Edelgard made a faintly amused noise. It seems we have similar ideas for the future. Well, I wouldn't mind if we, were neighbors. Byleth offered, faltering at the idea of sharing a cottage with Edelgard. Edelgard seemed rather amused at the idea regardless. 2 small cottages in the woods, That sounds like quite the sight. Unless you plan on making it 3 by having one built for Dorothea as well. Yes. And you wouldn't rather share a cottage with her? That would be good too. Edelgard raised an eyebrow at her. Didn't you sleep with her? There are differences. I think, I would like to though, Byleth mumbled. She might want a fancier cottage instead of a simple one like I want. So your solution is to build a proper house for Dorothea, and then a small shack for yourself on the property that you can stay in. It wouldn't be a shack. It would just be a smaller cottage. Byleth frowned. And shacks can be nice. They're handy for staying out of the rain when you're traveling. So you plan to travel too? Why not build a caravan then? A traveling cottage, that might be nice, actually. Maybe Dorothea could keep performing if she wants. And I can help with her act. Performance, Byleth. You're not running off to be a clown. Or at least I assume you're not. I can juggle. Ugh, we made a mistake introducing those two, Shay grumbled under her breath from her place guarding the pair. You're preaching to the choir, Geralt grumbled back. Neither of you introduced them, they are the leaders of major political entities in Fodlan, Hubert reminded, prompting more grumbling from both of them. Before anyone could continue grumbling, or Byleth could continue considering her potential future as a clown, a ship docked and lowered its plank for a familiar figure to walk down. Greetings, Emperor Edelgard, Petra greeted, adding a slight inclination of her head as she did. "Greetings to you as well, Queen Petra," Edelgard responded in kind, a slight smile on her face as she nodded back. "It's wonderful to see you," Byleth exclaimed, getting Petra to blink at the sudden boisterous person interjecting. "Ah, excuse me, may I be asking your name?" Petra inquired, confused at who the green-haired woman was. "Ah, of course," placing a hand over her heart, Byleth bowed slightly. "Greetings Queen Petra, my name is Byleth Eisner, Archbishop of the Church of Syros." Both Edelgard and Petra stared in blatant surprise as Byleth spoke in the language of Brigid, before Petra lit up. "My sincere greetings to you in turn, Lady Byleth Eisner. It is a pleasure to meet you. How long have you been studying the language of Brigid?" "Ah, 1 second. I study in the past the language of Brigid for the... No, hold on, I know how to say this," she took a breath, before pausing as Petra giggled. "It is okay. I speak the language of Fodlan just fine, though I do appreciate your attempt to speak the language of Brigid." She smiled. "I am assuming you are best with that introduction phrase." "Ah, yes, I practiced it a few times." "Was the pronunciation okay?" "It was perfect." "Again, thank you for your effort. Would you like to be learning more of the language of Brigid?" "I would. Thank you for the offer. Before we continue, perhaps we should move inside to have our meeting," Edelgard suggested. "Of course," Petra agreed, nodding in response as she walked ahead to greet Shay and Hubert. "My, but you are a woman of many talents, aren't you?" Edelgard commented to Byleth. "Oh, thank you. I practiced hard to be ready for this. Though studying another language among everything else meant I ended up having a few all-nighters," Byleth responded, not picking up on Edelgard's slight annoyance. Well perhaps I should give you a lesson next." This time, Byleth did pick up on the firm tone in Edelgard's voice, though it had a different effect than Edelgard expected as Byleth blushed. Something to dash. Blinking, Byleth suddenly looked around rapidly as she felt her hair stand up on end. Is something wrong? Tell Hubert that his people should sweep the castle, Byleth muttered, an edge to her voice as her eyes set into a glare. And make sure everyone is ready in case anyone tries to pull something off. Understood, Edelgard murmured in reply, accepting the Archbishop's wariness and keeping her own eyes out as she moved to Hubert and spoke in a low tone. Her steward straightened, instantly on guard while Byleth went over to Geralt. "I think we might have another assassination attempt," she muttered to her father, making his eyes harden as he scanned the crowd. "Be careful. I should be telling you that, even if I know you're good at taking care of yourself. Just try not to use up those charges of yours too quickly and focus on keeping yourself safe, all right?" He glanced down at her. "You're the one we're protecting. Don't risk your life." "I can't make any guarantees." "Course you can't, all right. I'll send a message ahead, make sure Eloise and your wolves are ready for anything. Shamir's on backup with some of the other knights, so hopefully they spot things before anyone gets close enough to make an attempt. If not, you know what to do." She nodded. "Kill all of them." "I meant get yourself to safety, kid. I would be much safer if the enemy is dead." "You're not wrong, but I'm not going to agree with you." Geralt huffed, before going to one of the church knights to get the message out. Petra had to admit, while she was not the biggest fan of the Empire, it was nice being back with her friends, even if she was technically above most of them in status. Though she was here on official business and for the sake of her people, she couldn't let them down. "Lady Eisner, I had received word that you had recently ascended to your position. So to start our meeting, I wish to present both you and Emperor Edelgard gifts." With a slight motion of her hand, some of her men presented the gifts, clothes, and spices from her island nation. "Oh, those look lovely." "Ah, I'm sorry, I don't have anything prepared for you," Byleth responded as she looked up from the gifts. "It is of no worry. These are gifts," Petra stated, though that also meant the Archbishop was on the back foot now as etiquette would have it. Definitely useful since they would be discussing the relationship between their respective groups going forward. "Thank you for these gifts," Edelgard said, a smile on her face, I hope this will be a good first step in our nations working together. Smiling in response, Petra gestured for her men to step back as the three leaders prepared to begin discussions. She had to admit, it was a bit odd that they were doing this in one of the center rooms of the palace, but that could just be her feeling a bit cramped with no windows. Firstly, I would like to say that I am glad that the Empire and Brigid are working together. I understand that your respective nations may not have the best of relations, but I truly hope that with you two working together, that the future will be bright, Byleth began, smiling with what looked like genuine cheer. It was a positive sign, as was the choice of sitting the three leaders around a round table, showing their positions held equal status rather than place one above the others. I am happy to hear you saying so, Lady Archbishop, Petra agreed with her own smile. I am understanding your position as a religious leader carries great weight with the people of Fodlan, so I have hope that your presence will facilitate the mending of bridges, as it is said. Byleth smiled again and Petra made a mental note that the new archbishop had a much more adorable smile than the previous one. She also seemed to be much easier to deal with, at least with how honest she was being. I will do my best. I must admit I am not the most well versed in Brigid's situation, but I shall do my best to mediate if necessary, Byleth said. It really was annoying how closed off the church made things. She should have more info on a bordering nation than one book of customs that claimed she should dance if she wanted to ask the queen anything. In that case, I wanted to ask how things are in Brigid after your own coronation, Queen Petra, Edelgard spoke up. I imagine your people are not happy to see their queen leave so early after she returned. Yes, many of my people were not pleased for me to return to the Empire. Even so, for the sake of both our nations, I came, Petra stated, keeping an even tone to not betray the fact that none of her people wanted her there. I understand. Our history has not been a pleasant one. My people have treated yours quite harshly time and time again. I don't need to tell you how much of the nobility here look down on your people. I intend to change that though. To be changing the attitudes of a nation is a task of great difficulty, Emperor Edelgard. I am imagining a good number still view my people as savages who invaded without cause. Edelgard frowned. I still intend to try. At the very least, I can ensure that people who hold such prejudices will not hold on to power for much longer. I appreciate the offer you are giving, Emperor Edelgard, but it is a goal of much loftiness. For now, I am thinking we should be attempting to reach smaller goals. Perhaps we can discuss trade routes. I understand that Brigid has many natural resources the Empire does not. We can also be a middle ground of trade between the Empire and Dada. While I would be glad to open trade, Dada may be another matter entirely. They may become incensed if they were to learn you are trading their goods to us. Though, since we are on the topic, I would like to openly say that if Dada were to invade Brigid again, you have my word that we will be at your side to defend your lands. Thank you, Emperor Edelgard. It is very heartening to hear you say as much, Petra said, a smile on her face before she glanced at Byleth. Will the church be offering a partnership as well? Of course. And while it may be closed at the moment, I would also like to offer an invitation to any citizen of Brigid that would like to join the Officers' Academy, should they wish to learn there. I'm completely open to anyone coming to the monastery so long as they're willing to learn. We would also like to discuss receiving any books on your culture, since the monastery is quite lacking in knowledge of foreign cultures, Byleth said, though I am afraid I cannot offer much in terms of aid when defending Brigid, as I intend to dissolve the Knights of Syros. What? Edelgard asked, her eyes widening in surprise. Ah, yes, I should have mentioned this before, but I do not believe that the Church should have such a strong militaristic force. The Eastern Church is a fine example of being able to work without it. We would of course still keep a small number of knights to help patrol Garag Mach and the like, but we do not need an army. If anything, I would like to set up something like, maybe a service order? People who would help as needed, instead of marching in with weapons and armor. Some would say there is a need for weapons and armor, Edelgard noted, despite the idea appealing to her. Sure, but it shouldn't be the church carrying weapons. I believe it's the duty of the faith to help people, not enforce their own edicts. Laws should be a matter for nations, not religions, Byleth responded as she faced Edelgard. If need be, they'll be able to defend themselves, but there is no need for everyone to wear heavy plate mail when we are trying to aid those in need. I can attest that armor can be a hindrance, Petra noted, especially with how many people that I met in the monastery seemed unable to climb trees. Wait, really? But that seems like such a basic thing. Ah, is this a topic we should be discussing? Edelgard asked, hoping to avoid another distracted tangent from the Archbishop. Well, I would think so. The Academy won't be teaching just militaristic classes, especially since we intend to make it easier for commoners to attend. It may be a good idea to have classes teaching important life skills to students, Byleth considered, beginning to mutter to herself. Proper medical classes would go a long way to help students instead of just relying on faith magic. You want to open the Academy for more commoners? Yes, while the monastery says its doors are open for anyone, it's quite clear that unless they have a noble patron, most if not all commoners end up in debt to pay off the tuition fee. As such, I wish to waive the fees, or at least lower them. Of course, there are only so many students the monastery can take in, so I hope that the Empire, as well as the Kingdom and Alliance, would be able to open more establishments to teach commoners. I'm sure you would agree that it is beneficial, especially if we teach them about foreign cultures to help remove misunderstandings, right Queen Petra? Byleth asked, guiding the conversation back to Brigid so Petra wasn't left out. Yes, I can most definitely agree with your reasoning, Lady Archbishop, Petra agreed with a bright smile. Teaching and learning is a very good place to start. It is by learning that I have found connections with Adrestia, so I hope it is by teaching that Brigid may make connections as well. Of course, and I also hope that we can have our people work together to translate our books, lest there be any misunderstandings. Byleth smiled at Petra. Why, I read a book the other day that claimed if I am to ask a Brigid royal to do something then I need to sing and dance for them, yet I am certain that is a mistranslation. Perhaps a misunderstanding of Brigid traditions to the spirits of their land. Yes, that is certainly not how we do things, Petra noted, a bit amused by the book misunderstanding her culture. I must say, I am quite pleased that, unlike your predecessor, you are so open to learning about foreign nations, Edelgard said, laying on a bit of praise. Fodlan can't close itself off forever. Despite any differences between cultures and religions, we're all still human, Byleth said, even if she knew that wasn't completely true. The goddess wishes us to live in peace and harmony, and we cannot do that alone. And if there are those within the church who don't go along with your reforms? Edelgard asked, attempting such sweeping changes won't be easy. If such matters were easy, people like us wouldn't need to exist, Byleth responded, her eyes meeting Edelgard's before she glanced away again. Regardless, I will handle it. Petra, meanwhile, frowned slightly, feeling as if there was a hidden message there. Though before she could ask, the door opened as a maid entered, pushing in a tea cart. Oh, I was unaware we would be having tea, Petra commented, looking over at the maid before she returned her gaze to the two leaders with her. She only had a brief moment to recognize the gentle-faced Archbishop's eyes suddenly hardening as the maid approached her, only for the maid to be suddenly slammed against the table, her arm jammed behind her back as Byleth stabbed a knife next to her head. Scream and this won't end well for you, the Archbishop stated, a cold fury permeating her words. C.A.L. Lady Archbishop. Petra yelped as she shot to her feet, the guards in the room immediately tensing as hands went to weapons. And that cold fury faded for a moment as she glanced at Petra in slight confusion. Huh? Oh, right, sorry, this is one of the assassins. And no, I'm not, I swear. The fury returned as she tightened her grip and wrenched the woman's arm up further. Then you won't mind if we let you drink that tea first. The maid went rigid, before abruptly snarling as a dark glow formed at her hand. You filthy beast. You'll die in agony. And in one swift motion, Byleth pulled the knife from the table and slammed it through the back of her neck, directly where the spine met the skull. As the maid went limp, her appearance changed, as if a veil was lifted, her skin becoming a corpse pale. Sorry, I wanted to question her but I wasn't going to risk it, Byleth explained, letting go of the agar then. What is going on? Petra demanded to know. Faintly, she remembered a different pale-skinned monster she had fought before with the eagles, but that didn't explain what in the world just happened. Said question also seemed to rid Byleth of the fury in her eyes as she blinked. Edelgard, did you not tell her about the Agarthance? There wasn't time to do so, Edelgard responded, frowning at the corpses as she stood up. Yes there was, Byleth contradicted, you told Hubert. Edelgard, who had been about to call her guards to action, paused with another frown. You told me to tell Hubert. Right, but that just makes sense to do. Just like it makes sense to tell Petra so she would be aware of the assassins. Edelgard grimaced. Byleth, I imagine we don't have much time before the remaining assassins realize we are aware of their presence. Could we save this discussion for afterward? Ah, right, okay. I would be appreciating warnings about assassins in the future, Petra added with a deadpan look towards Edelgard, who had the grace to look at least a little embarrassed. We should move quickly. If we're lucky, they might have only sent a few assassins, but as it stands, we need to be careful. Especially since they weren't armed. In that case, we should head to the throne room if we want to be well defended, one of Byleth's guards suggested. Good idea, though I need to head to my room first, I need to get my sword, Byleth stated, earning a frown from the Emperor. Is that necessary right now? Trust me, Edelgard. The sword of the Creator is just the thing to help drag these dastards out of the woodwork if they're attacking, Byleth stated, a smile growing on her face. Just remember, don't let anyone close to you unless you can explicitly trust them. As her smile started to strain her face, Byleth turned to head out the door, perhaps feeling a bit too excited to fight. You're going to wear a hole in the floor if you keep pacing like that, shady lady, Yuri called out from his place on Byleth's couch, book in hand so he could pretend to be reading instead of keeping an eye on Constance's nervous breakdown. I am not, the carpets here are finer than any other and they will not be worn down by mere pacing. Constance shot back, before going right back to her pacing with a grimace, she will be fine, she has been interacting with the Emperor just fine, and this is the same. Just because the royalty is foreign does not mean Byleth will have any issues, so have more confidence in her, Yuri. I'm the one who's confident here, shady lady. She's been handling herself fine lately. The worst that'll happen is she ends up kissing the Emperor during the meeting. PFT, no offense to Chatterbox, but she'd probably melt if she did that, Happy called out from the bed, where she was relaxing with some snacks. I don't know about you, but I got a good feeling about all this, Balthus said, grinning as he leaned back on the couch. I'm sure everything I'd sailing smoothly dash. The door to the room suddenly slammed open as Byleth rushed in. Hey guys, I need my sword, we're going to fight. Oh no, I knew it. We're going to war with the Empire. Constance yelped. What? No, we're not. Then with Brigid. Constance, no, we're fighting the Agarthance. I knew it. And they would be. Right, I need to make sure everyone is on the same page later, Byleth said, moving to her bed, and reaching under to pull out a wrapped-up bundle. Just get ready, it might only be some assassins but we need to be careful. As is, we're moving to the throne room so we can defend dash. The roar of a demonic beast cut Byleth off as she pulled her sword out of the bundle. Nodding to herself, Byleth stood up. Right, change of plans, you guys go fortify defenses in the throne room, I'm going to deal with that. What? But Lady Byleth, we're meant to guard, and Byleth was already back out the door before Constance could finish her sentence. Lady Byleth. Well, guess we better get a move on before Rhea or Gerald have our heads, Yuri decided, putting away his book as he did. Ha, might as well have some fun then. Balthus said with a bark of laughter as he cracked his knuckles. Happy, meanwhile, tried not to sigh as she stood up, really hoping this would be over with quickly. I'm telling you, you don't need to be so on edge around her, Money, Dorothea said, as she cut off a piece of her cigarette and cream to eat. The cafe the pair were sitting at was a nice little place she was sure Byleth would like, but she could always save that for later. For now, she had a friend who didn't like her girlfriend and needed to be convinced otherwise. I understand you might vouch for her, but I still need to be careful, Monica responded, frowning as she poked at her own dessert with a spoon. I get it, I really do, but Edie can take care of herself. Not to mention that Byleth would probably sooner jump off a cliff before hurting Edie. I can't fault her for that, at least. Letting out a small chuckle, Dorothea glanced to the side for a brief moment of watching the bustle of the city, only to pause when she saw two women standing in the streets wearing black gowns and bird masks. Some kind of street performance. Glancing over to where Dorothea was looking, Monica stiffened at the sight of the bird masks. We need to move. Something wrong, Money? Dorothea asked, not noting the mages lifting their hands and forming a sigil on the ground in front of them. I haven't seen you like dash. An explosion of magic cut her off, knocking her to the ground with a wave of heat, only for a loud roar to sound out before she could regain her bearings. She tried to shake off the shock of the explosion, but felt herself stiffen in growing fear at the sight of a massive, monstrous creature stalking forth from the smoke. The demonic beast shook its helmeted head as it pushed forward into the city streets, the metal visage of a human face giving it an eerie appearance when contrasted with its black and red draconic body. Crimson tassels dangled from its helm like a veil, though they left enough room for the monstrosity to unleash a breath of flame over the streets as bystanders panicked and fled. Dorothea nearly screamed as she felt someone grab her, before she saw Monica hush her as they moved behind a table that had fallen on its side. Please tell me you have a tome on you, Monica asked as she unclipped the one she had at her side. Dorothea, in response, only looked down at her dress, which, while nice, didn't really have any magic pockets. Didn't think I needed to bring one while having some sweets with a friend, Dorothea said in a hushed tone as she heard the thundering of the demonic beast's roar. Okay. Taking a moment to think, Monica nodded. Take the alley to the left of this building, as long as you follow it, you'll make it to a street near the palace. I'll distract them while you run. What? Money, I'm not leaving you behind. Dorothea argued, even as she stiffened when more roars and screams sounded out. Besides, I can still cast magic even without a tome. I can handle this. Someone needs to go back to alert Her Majesty if she hasn't been already, Monica argued back, only for the building they were in to shake as a demonic beast began to climb on top of it. Please tell me you know warp. Why would I study faith magic? Monica asked in response, before pausing as she realized the hypocrisy there. Probably best not to let the Archbishop know. Chapter 35, It really was that simple, April Fools. Staring up at her friend's outstretched hand, Byleth took a moment to steady herself. This was it, a chance to right all her wrongs, to make sure everyone she cared about lived. Slowly, she reached out. Wait. Before pausing. Is something wrong? I can't go back just yet. I'm a complete mess. What? The diminutive goddess stared down at her in confusion. I understand you've been living in the woods for who knows how long, but your body has been preserved. No, I mean my mind. If I go back I'll probably start crying as soon as I see someone like Geralt. Byleth paused. Tears started to sting her eyes at the thought of being able to see her dad again. SC. Suthies let out an aggravated sigh. Fine, what is your plan then? I'm going to train. What? I'm going to train. When I say what, I want you to elaborate, not just repeat yourself. It's okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to train my body and mind until I am the ultimate warrior, she declared, standing up with her fist clenched and determination burning in her eyes. And how are you going to do that, exactly? Push-ups, sit-ups, and plenty of fruit. And how is that going to train your mind? It's not. I need to say sorry to my students. She nodded to herself. I'm going to resolve everything. Are you certain you do not wish to go back now? No, I'm doing this. Byleth paused. Do you think I could take back the relic weapons with me? No. Ah. And thus, Byleth trained. Physically, mentally, and emotionally. The first by doing various things, like hunting down every single remaining demonic beast in Fodlan. By the time she was done, she had successfully driven 3 species to extinction and left a trail of blood and bodies across the whole of Fodlan. She also prevented a few rebellions along the way because dammit, she had already stopped the war, she was not dealing with another one. The second, by investigating things. Mainly by breaking into libraries and just reading, while occasionally turning back time so she was never actually caught or got into trouble. Surprisingly, there were tons of conspiracies all over Fodlan. Many of which included some lady named Cornelia who was also a Garthan, so Byleth beat her to death with her own spine. Then she rewound time to actually ask her a few questions because that was maybe a little hasty. Then she actually got answers to her questions and proceeded to beat Cornelia to death with a candelabra. It was slightly less gory than the spine. Still fairly bloody though. The third was unsurprisingly difficult though, going back after being away for so long, but she was able to do it. Her first stop was the monastery, where she would likely run into most of her former students. She thought so anyway. Most of them were actually scattered in various places, but she still found a few of them. It was a tearful reunion meeting those who were at the monastery. Byleth had far more emotions than she was expecting. She was able to make do, even if she had to sleep after crying so much. Things got a bit more difficult when she encountered Seath again, who informed her about Abyss, which led to an entire adventure where she had to defeat her father's former friend. That was traumatic, but she was able to make some new friends at least. Regardless, she spent a good deal of time talking and making sure she could learn as much as she could so she could use the information before she went back. Note to self, complain to Rhea when I see her again. Hey Suthies, since you're her mom she'll listen to you, so make sure to scold her when we go back. What? No, you deal with her. Do it or I'll cry. You cannot keep threatening me with that. I can and I will. Ugh. She also refused to be the archbishop again because that was an absolutely terrible idea. Seath insisted it would bring some kind of stability to Fodlan, to which she explained that it didn't really matter if this Fodlan remained stable because she was going to fix everything in the past. Seath tried to have the knights arrest her for some reason after that. Something about her being mentally unstable. Well, she sure showed him. Got to vent a lot of emotional issues there. And kind of had to rewind time a few times since she didn't actually want to hurt anyone that badly and it turned out people were weirdly fragile now. That and she didn't want to burn down the monastery. Not permanently, at least, though there was something weirdly cathartic about it. Anyways, Byleth was doing great. She definitely knew what she was doing and she definitely fixed everything. You wanted to go back in time to fix everything. Oh, right. Can we do that now? Suthies sighed, glancing around the shattered throne room. Are you quite sure you have handled everything? Yeah, pretty sure. Not sure why this King Shahid guy invaded, but hey, now Almira won't be a problem. Byleth said with a smile as she lounged on the throne, her sword still soaked with the blood of the decapitated king. I suppose it will not. Very well then. Allow me to handle everything. Okay, good. Hey, if you can I go back to Shamhala specifically, or? That is not how it works. Let me just prepare this, alright. Okay. She shifted a little awkwardly as Suthies gathered up the magic necessary. Are you mad at me? Byleth, please, be quiet. I am not mad at you, I am just trying to concentrate. Okay. She sighed, laying back as her divine friend prepared to send them both back in time. Her eyes drifted over, landing on a guy with dark hair and tan skin who was peeking at her from behind a column. Hey, wait a second. Byleth sat up, pointing towards the spying guy. Claude. And then she vanished. Claude survived, were the first words Byleth abruptly shouted upon waking up back in the past. That complete asshole disappeared. Wait, was he Almiran the whole time? Kid? The hell are you shouting about? Geralt asked as he peeked into her room, raising an eyebrow. Byleth paused at the sight of her completely alive father, then took a slow breath. Okay, you are emotionally stable, do not start crying. Are you alright? Geralt asked, much more concerned now. All good, completely good, she replied, getting right up and giving her father a tight hug. I love you, you're one of the most important people in the world to me, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. Alright, that's sweet, but I'm honestly more worried now, he admitted, the heartwarming feeling of hearing his daughter admit she loved him overshadowed by a whole lot of concern for why she was acting completely different. That, and... Hang on, why's your hair green? Goddess magic. What? I'll explain later. For now, 1 SEC, I need to go to HRYM to destroy an entire underground city. What? And thus, Byleth set out. Wait, hang on. She turned back at the edge of the village and walked back to her very confused father. Hey, what day is it? Kid, you're starting to scare me. That's not an answer, Papa. Never mind, I'll just look around the woods and go kill a bandit group. What are you talking about? And thus, Byleth set out. Again. Running off into the woods, she went in the direction of the monastery, as the camp they were in was likely in between Remire and Gareg Mach. What she didn't expect was to see the three house leaders talking with a violet-haired girl. Think introductions can wait. You clearly need every blade that you need, and my pockets have been feeling awfully light lately. What's going on? Byleth asked, honestly very confused about who this person was. What she didn't expect was for the girl to immediately glare at her as she turned around. The Ashen Demon. Oh right, I used to be called that. Byleth muttered, before dodging a strike from the new girl. I finally found, and then Byleth punched the new girl in the face. The boom that sounded out shook the trees, and Byleth promptly rewound time because she probably shouldn't have smashed someone's head on a first meeting like that. Okay, I think we got off on the wrong foot. You're not going to beat me again. That time, Byleth put a hand on her face and gently slammed her into the ground hard enough to leave a crater. She rewound time again. I finally found, Shay blinked as she was abruptly slapped. No. None of that, Byleth stated, frowning in disapproval at the purple-haired girl. I'm not interested in whatever your thing is. Shay rubbed her stinging cheek, blinking. Did you just slap me? Yes. Anyways. Byleth turned to the three house leaders and raised a hand, pointing to each of them in turn. Edelgard, don't start a war. Dimitri, don't be a weird ghost. Claude, why were you alive? That was weird. Also, stop that King Shahid guy from invading. I don't want to have to deal with that again. She paused. Oh, also, I'm from the future, that's why I know things. She put her hands on her hips, nodding to the stunned and baffled house leaders. Anyways, I'm going to go genocide the Agarthans. No, wait, I don't like how that sounds. I'm going to go annihilate those who slither in the dark. Yeah, that's a better word, that explains things better. See you at the academy later. And thus, Byleth left, having solved everything. What? Edelgard asked, audibly baffled. Do I die? Dimitri wondered, feeling very weird at the moment. He glanced at Edelgard. Do I die in a war you start? Well, it sounds like I live, so I'm doing pretty good, Claude noted, before frowning, though why would Shahid get to be king? In retrospect, Byleth probably should have grabbed a map. She knew Shambhala was to the south, but she got a bit lost in the woods, so she ended up wandering into a fort. Good news, however, it was full of bandits and Agarthans. Weird news was that Monica was in the basement. Okay, are you the real Monica or is this some weird ploy? I'm not sure what that means. Does the name Kronia mean anything to you? Is that the woman holding me prisoner? Okay, that's maybe a good sign. Hey, tell me something only Monica would know. Wait, no, I don't know anything about you. Hey, what do you think about Edelgard? Lady Edelgard? Did she send you? Yes. Oh, I knew she wouldn't leave me here. Please, you need to take me to Lady Edelgard so I can tell her that Tamash kidnapped me. Okay, good, that actually works out great for me. She paused. Hey, you'd never call Edelgard Edel, right? No? That's far too familiar and disrespectful. Okay, sounds very good then. Let's get you over to Edelgard then. And so, Monica was freed. Hey, what's a worm like you doing in my base? Byleth stared at Kronia for a moment, then took a slow breath, in and out, before pitching her sword through the Agarthan's head. Okay, that's one. Monica peeked around her. Well, thank you. You're welcome. Anyways, let's get going, she decided, hoisting Monica up into a princess carry and heading towards the monastery, not really noticing how the redhead's face turned about as red as her hair along the way. gonna need to delay killing Shambhala. Thankfully, it was only a few hours away from the monastery, so Byleth was able to arrive rather quickly. What she didn't expect was for some knights to attempt to hold her captive when they saw her carrying Monica. From the outside it was understandable, she was soaked in blood and carrying a student. Byleth however was annoyed and just jumped over them. Running into the monastery, she moved past students and staff, as she went towards the classrooms, before kicking open the doors to the Black Eagles classroom. Delivery. There was a lot of screaming for some reason, but she deposited Monica easily enough. Aha, there you are. And there was the purple girl again. Not Bernadetta, the new one. You're not getting away from me this time. Byleth smacked her on the top of her head this time. Knock it off, oh hey, you're a student. Oh ow, purple girl didn't respond, currently clutching the lump on her head. Still, the uniform answered Byleth's question well enough. You again, and there was Edelgard, who was frowning at Byleth, before her eyes went wide. Wait, is that Monica? Yup. Here, take good care of her, Byleth encouraged, patting the good Monica on her head. I killed Kronia so she should be fine this time. You what? I'll explain later. Should I take a bath? Nah, after I kill those who slither. And thus, Byleth left. Well, she tried to, but there were a bunch of knights in the way. And pointing spears at her. Surrender now, invader. Oh hi Louise. Byleth smiled brightly and waved at the nice knight. Ah, right, could you check in with my dad for me? I've been gone a couple days, I think, so he's probably a little worried. Pardon. You know, my dad, Geralt. She paused. Wait, I didn't mention that part yet. Yeah, my dad's Geralt, I left him in the woods, could you check on him? Thanks, bye. And she promptly and properly left this time, taking care not to punch out any knights as she left. It was much easier to just use their helmets as stepstones on her way out. Especially the Pegasus Knights, they gave her a lot of distance. Sorry about this, she shouted at the Pegasus Knight that she had knocked off her steed, riding the Pegasus southward. Okay, so, gotta go to Hrym. I remember where Shambhala is, mostly, but I definitely need to go to, wait. Is Thales still Arundel right now? She frowned, before promptly turning towards Inver. She kind of needed to rewind time a few times, mostly because she destroyed too much of the palace, but she did manage to find Arundel. Who in the world were the last words Thales managed to say before Byleth kicked him hard enough in the crotch to fracture his pelvis. You know, I wasn't totally sure that would work, she admitted, staring at the crumpled, vomiting jackass whose lower body she had rendered into shattered bone. I thought you might have some kind of advanced crotch armor or something. Oh well. She paused, then looked around the meeting room she had broken into, where the other ministers were all gathered, because apparently she had arrived just as they were all having a meeting. Oh hey, I need to beat the shit out of you, she remarked, pointing at Count Varley. I surrender. Count Varley immediately yelped, holding his hands up. You worm, have some pride. Duke Aegir snapped, before turning a glare towards Byleth. I have no idea who you think you are, but you will not get away with. Oh yeah, I need to beat you up too, she realized, recognizing the Duke. Alright, that's enough of, and down went Count Berglis with a punch to the face. One Byleth had to actually try twice because she didn't actually want to kill Casper's dad and she was pretty sure this old guy was him because they had the same hair color. Kinda. The rest of the assembled ministers stared at the crumbled count, who had knocked over their table as he fell, before looking at Byleth. I am willing to consider terms of surrender, Duke Aegir said, before flinching as Byleth cracked her knuckles. Yeah, no. That's not an option here. Your options are whether you want to clench your teeth to avoid biting your tongue, or if you'd rather keep it loose so your jaw breaks properly. Marquis Vestra promptly shoved over his chair and tried to run. He got a table to the back for his trouble. Am I also going to be beaten up? Count Hevering spoke up, raising a hand. Are you Linhard's dad? I am. I haven't heard anything bad about you. How involved were you in the experiments on Edelgard? He frowned. What experiments would that be? Good answer. Also, I don't know who you are, so you're fine, she said, gesturing to Duke Girth. Thank you. You're welcome. Now then, dang it, Varley ran, I'm not going to waste a turn back on him. You wretched beast. Blinking, she turned to see Thales slowly standing up, a dark energy surrounding him as he dispelled his disguise, preparing a spell in hand. You're not going to dash. Oh hey, you actually removed your disguise, that's useful. She promptly roundhouse kicked the Agarthan hard enough to hear a crack as he smashed through the nearest wall. And a few behind it. Huh. Didn't think I hit him that hard. She paused as her heard a pained yelp from a broken body hitting a fleeing coward. Oh hey, that's convenient. She looked back at Aegir, who flinched at her stare. I'm only going easy on you cause Ferdinand actually liked you. Whatever relief he felt immediately left a moment later, since her going easy meant she just punched him fast enough that he didn't realize he had passed out until he slumped to the floor. Nodding to herself, she began to walk through the hole in the wall, before pausing and looking back at the remaining ministers. Give Ionius back his power or I'll be back. With that, she left, grabbing Thales' corpse before going to drop him off to the Emperor so he didn't have to worry about the Agarthan disguised as his brother-in-law anymore. Alright, now I just gotta, damn it. Tamash was that Solon guy and he's back at the monastery, ugh, fuck it, I'll go handle Shamhala first. And thus, Byleth set out once more. Even bloodier than before. Luckily, it rained along the way, so she did get something of a bath. Kind of. So, being in Inver meant she actually had a good idea on where Shamhala was, and the fact that she was alone meant she was able to sneak in easily. As much as she wanted to go in sword swinging, she didn't want to deal with the metal soldiers or the giant thunder rods, so she began to quietly move. Sage Solon, what are you doing back here? Pausing, she turned to see a familiar hunched-back mage walking into Shamhala. My disguise was blown. Somehow that red-headed beast managed to escape, and those at the monastery learned of who I was, Solon said, scowling as he did. Oh wow, that's lucky. How is that in any way fortuitous? Now we need to dash. Pausing, Solon turned to look at Byleth who was standing behind him. Hey, just so you know this is gonna be very personal even if you don't remember. What dash? In a moment of irony, Byleth stabbed her hand through his back and ripped out his heart. Oh ew, why is it black? She wondered, frowning at the gross orb in her hand before she tossed it to the side, then glanced at the black-clad mage staring at her. Hey, do you mind telling me who the rest of your leaders are? I promise I'll just take your arms instead of stomping you into the ground. Can I keep my arms and lose my legs instead? I feel like that's less convenient though. He shrugged. I do more things with my arms. Fair enough. Byleth was nice enough to heal his bleeding stumps as he screamed in pain, before walking off to kill the leaders there. Which was most of them apparently, as Cleobulus was the only one who wasn't there apparently. I miss Suthes, Byleth said in the middle of her assault, sighing as she realized she hadn't heard the goddess since she returned. Sure, she had been active, but also it was quiet not having someone to talk to. And sure, there were a bunch of screams of Agarthans dying around her, but that was more background noise at this point. There were also a bunch of explosions happening and some weird voice that kept repeating something over and over again. She didn't understand it, but people were running and screaming so. Okay, so that was a warning to evacuate cause the place was going to blow. Or maybe just evacuate in general. She wasn't sure if they activated the explosion or if it was Byleth destroying things. Either way, she made sure to rewind time and leave before the place blew. The explosion looked nicer than last time. Granted, she'd been in the city as a bunch of giant javelins crashed down on it, but it was neat seeing the big, mushroom-shaped explosion from a hill nearby. She was feeling pretty good about this, yup. Okay, so, I got Cronia, Thales, Solon, Ilan, I killed a couple ladies, but I'm not sure if I got Bias or Pitacus, and I'm pretty sure Myson was the guy screaming that they would never be destroyed as the place blew up, so that leaves Cleobulus. Who I think is that Cornelia lady, nice. If she's in the kingdom, I might as well see how things are going at the monastery. Byleth stared up at the monastery, which was on fire. How did that happen? she wondered, very confused, before she spotted some kind of demonic beast climbing one of the, oh, hey, isn't that the thing Aelfric turned into? Wait, shit. The benefit of having control over time was the ease of just turning things back so she could prevent bad things from happening. Like her dad's weird friend turning into an umbral beast and burning down the monastery. She wasn't completely sure what turn of events caused that to happen, but she had some guesses as she arrived at the monastery in time to find Aelfric conducting some weird ritual in one of the buildings whose name she forgot. It was probably a holy something or other. Either way, she made sure to save the wolves before they could lose too much blood, the cardinal screaming and wondering just who she was. Because Geralt would probably want to deal with him, she decided to just knock him out. Well, this is certainly a surprise. Can I know why you showed up, friend? Yuri asked. From the future, Aelfric tried to pull this off last time, so I had to stop him from turning into a giant monster. Byleth said, walking over to her mother's body and gently picking her up. Make sure to get some rest, okay? What? I'll explain later. Byleth said, before pausing as she heard people rushing in. Looking over, she saw several knights and some students enter the holy place, looking ready for a fight. Which meant they were very surprised to see Aelfric and his force already defeated. Oh hey there Edelgard. Don't worry, those who slither in the bit my tongue. That name is too much of a mouthful, the slithery fucks are all dead. Who are you? Oh wait, did I not tell you my name? I'm Byleth. Ah wait, let me just go bury my mama and we can sit down and talk. Pausing, she reached down and grabbed the chalice of beginnings. Right, I need to get rid of this. Frowning, she tightened her grip to try and break the relic, only for a blinding light to come out as it cracked. Ow, that was bright. MN. Feeling something stir in her arms, she looked down to see her mom open her eyes. Hello. Oh. Byleth blinked, her eyes starting to sting. Heh. Thought I wasn't going to cry this time. Byleth. Hi mama, Byleth replied, her voice breaking, before she gave her mother as big a hug as she could. It absolutely ruined the white dress she was wearing, but neither of them really cared about that at the moment. Rhea had lived for over 1,000 years. In that time, she had dealt with loss, grief, and pain, yet also joys both large and small, and experiences none could truly understand. None of which prepared her for seeing the homunculus she'd created somehow alive again after spending 20 years dead, carefully cleaning blood off a pouting young woman who was absolutely drenched in the stuff. Mama, you don't need to clean me off, I was going to take a bath once I killed all my enemies, she complained in a distinctly whiny tone, her pouting face at complete odds with the crusted blood clinging to her skin. Byleth, you can't just go around covered in gore. You need to at least try to look presentable, especially when you're at the monastery, Citrai reprimanded, frowning, what has your father been teaching you? He's been teaching me plenty. I've just been busy dealing with the Agarthants. If I may. Just what exactly is going on? Rhea asked, finally deciding to speak. Oh, right. Rhea, I'm from the future. I know about you wanting to use me to revive Suthies, and I just finished killing most of your greatest enemies. Rhea. What does she mean you attempted to use her as a vessel? Well, Rhea cleared her throat, trying to think of an explanation that didn't make her look terrible. In fairness, she would not be alive if I did not implant the Creststone in her. Citrai was glaring at her now. That isn't an excuse. At all. It's barely an explanation. I don't really have an excuse. Especially as this is the first time I've met young Byleth. Yeah well, as long as you don't try that anymore, we're good, Byleth replied, brushing a bit of bloodied hair out of her face. Suthies really wasn't happy with you. Excuse me. Oh yeah, Suthies did wake up in me, though she was an amnesiac, so she really didn't like what you were doing. Well, she didn't like what you were doing even after she remembered, but yeah. Oh. Yeah, things kinda go bad. Mainly cause the church is kinda messing things up because of how it's running things. I mean Thales was in charge of the empire for the past, 5 years or so, and you didn't realize. She paused. Oh yeah, I killed him, so you don't have to worry about that. I see. I see. Ria nodded, trying to think of what to say next because, yeah, that was a lot of things all at once. So. Now that you're here, child, do you want to join the Church of Ceros? Oh, no thanks, I still have some Agarthans I need to kill. Though, could I actually ask you for something when I finish with that? Ria stared at the young woman who was apparently a successful incarnation of the goddess, just not in the way she ever could have expected. I suppose so, yes. What is it you want, child? Byleth smiled. Honestly? I'd really like to be a professor. Stirring awake, Edelgard von Hresvelg, the Emperor of Adristria, felt rather content. It had been several years since she had gone to the monastery to begin her plans of waging war on Fodlan. To think she would end up marrying the person who completely ruined her plans. Sighing, she looked down to see one Byleth Eisner, completely asleep, with a line of drool going down her cheek. It was certainly interesting remembering the blood-soaked mercenary who came in, sweeping the world like a tornado. Smiling slightly, she gently poked the sleeping woman, who made a faint noise before trying to wrap her arm around Edelgard. If you want to cuddle with her more, you know it's better to kiss her rather than just poke, Dorothea called out from where she was preparing for the day. That's not what I'm planning. I'm just reminiscing. Well, make sure to kiss her for me if you plan on reminiscing all morning. I have an opera to get ready for, Miss Citrai and Sir Geralt are visiting, so I want to make sure the production is perfect today. Yes, as you insist. Have a good morning, Dorothea. You too. Try to avoid laying in bed all day, all right? No promises. Dorothea giggled before heading out, letting Edelgard lay back down with a soft smile as she enjoyed the sight of Byleth's sleeping face. She looked so very peaceful. To think she would ever be able to enjoy something as simple as her lover's presence. She still had much to fix in the Empire, but she wouldn't have to do it alone, at least. And at least her nation was better off than the kingdom and the alliance. Shame about what happened to them, but oh well. She had a cute wife, she was happy. Check the description for the links to the author.